Now let's talk throughput. On a wireless network, the throughput is pretty much always, well, it is always less than the rated speed. Okay? At minimum, the ACs are overhead. So even if it's just me, where's me and my wireless access point? This is a better diagram. So even if it was just me and the access point and we were all alone, just the ACs are going to add a fair amount of overhead there. Once I get where I've added in clients, the overhead goes up and up and up. So each client is going to use more than their share of the throughput. What I mean here is 2 clients are going to get less than, it's not equal to, less than 50% of the throughput. Okay? This is because of the weighting. If there's ever a collisions or just waiting, means, what are we going to call this? Dead time. We'll put unusable bandwidth. Okay. So as you add clients, your share of throughput just goes down and down and down and down. And for the most part, you want. I mean, I see some of these cafes, and there will be 10 people working at once. That's not good. If you've really got about 5 people, I'll just put that as an approximate. Max 5, we'll call it very active users. So if you have 5 people doing something at the same time, your network is probably okay. Anything more, we'll just call it, you're going to have trouble, okay? So if you got 10 users, you want them to be sitting around doing nothing a lot. 5, about 5 is about all you can get out of it. So just to go over some of the rated speeds, this is like a little bit of a history lesson. I noted some of these earlier in the unit. An 802.11b, the maximum speed is 11 megabits per second, but you're going to get about 5 megabits per second when you're alone, okay? That's kind of scary. So if it's only me and the access point, even though 802.11b can transmit 11 megabits per second, I'm actually only going to get 5. And mostly this is the one-way idea, right? Only one thing can transmit at once. If I go back over here, I can only transmit it once. If I need to get something back from the access point, I have to wait for the access point to finish too. Sometimes people forget that the access point is participating in the network. And so that's why we're saying, in general, even though there's only one person on the network, because it's me and the access point, I lose about half of my throughput. On the 802.11, A and G, which were rated at 54 megabits per second. If you're alone, you can normally get about 20 megabits per second. And an 802.11n, you should be able to get up to 300 megabits per second, but generally there you only get about 100 megabits per second, even when you're just alone. 802.11ac, the max speed is 600 megabits per second, and it's probably, you can probably get 300. Probably about 250. I haven't looked up the actual throughput stats on that, sorry, on AC. What was I watching AC? Somebody was doing AC and they were getting close to 600, but I think they were just doing raw output. Okay? So congestion. So if you add more stations, we'll just say here substantially. So as we get congestion, we're going to degrade. And then mixing usually means if you mix clients, so if you're on an AC network and an 802.11n client comes on or an 802.11g client comes on, that usually means everyone must use the slower speed. Because what will normally happen is your access point will just go down to G mode, and then everyone has to go to G mode. And of course, it's a disaster if you have to go to B mode. Although, 5 meg, it's not that bad. Yeah, you can actually set your access point to say don't. So you can say support 802.11n only. Don't support G. And that means if someone's on a G client and they come in, they won't be able to join your network. So I did that once. What was I doing? No, that was a security thing. I set my access point to what I wanted it to do, and all my clients worked, and then my brother-in-law came in, and he was doing something else, and I had to reset my access point to accommodate him, which sucked. But, so if you're at a cafe, right, you can probably expect to see someone coming in on G, so you're pretty much stuck supporting G. You might be able to say, some chump comes in with 802.11b, just be like, yeah, forget it. We don't support you. You don't support you in your old PSP or whatever they're running. Yeah. So you can say not to use it also. Lots of stuff. There's still stuff to cover, huh? All right, so let's say we want to set up a network and a large, by the way, the bottom line here is use wired if possible for multiple. If you're ever using multiple hosts and they're active, it's time to use a wired network. So just plan on putting them in. This is why companies, you're never going to see this in a cubicle farm. It's just, there's no way. When it first came out, people were saying, oh, this will be so much easier. We won't have to put wires in. And we quickly found out, yeah, you can really, about 5 people running at once isn't very many, especially when you're in an office. So you're going to switch to wired.